Yes, we did make a video about this when it came to the Calder Trophy, and I did say that I wanted to continue making videos like that throughout the week, so I think we might do something like that again tomorrow. It really depends on what other news comes out in the NHL. But today we're doing a different video in that same style, but we're talking about a different trophy. Let's talk today about the James Norris Memorial Trophy, aka the trophy that goes to the best defenseman in the NHL. Now, normally I don't usually ever talk about this trophy because, let's face it, when it comes to the more popular trophies, people talk about the Art Ross, people talk about the Hart, etc. We haven't really made videos about that, mostly just the Calder because Vancouver Canucks are always finding their way into that conversation, which makes it relevant to me, and plus, talking about Calder guys is talking about prospects, talking about rookies, talking about young guys, the youth of the league, the next generation. There's a very nice element of those aspects intertwined in that conversation. But the Norris is never really a trophy that we've discussed at length in that same way on this YouTube channel. But for the first time, I wanted to make a video talking about guys who might be in that conversation. Because, like the Calder race, which we talked about in the previous video a week and a bit ago, if you remember what I said about the Calder Trophy, you'll remember that pretty much, in my opinion, the Calder is just more or less a measure of points. And if it's not points, it's points per game. You get more points, more merit if you're a defenseman who produces points. And if you're a goalie, it's just completely based off of wins, pretty much. So when it comes to the Calder Trophy, pretty much it's just who has the most points at the end of the year, right? Well, let's talk about that in the context of the James Norris, because the Norris, which is awarded to the best defenseman in the NHL, usually is kind of the same, but not entirely. You see, I actually had to look this up, but the Norris the past few years has actually been given to the guy who is second in the defenseman point race. And it's mostly because being a defenseman requires you to actually defend, which isn't necessarily a requirement if you're one of the top young rookie wingers scoring goals like there's no tomorrow and you're waiting for your name to be announced for the Calder Trophy. Defensemen have different roles they have to defend too, but primarily speaking, you don't win the Norris Trophy without being at the very least like top 5, top 6 in point production for defensemen in that season. So pretty much, if we want to make a ballpark estimate of the guys who are in this conversation right now, what we need to do is go over and take a look at the NHL's defenseman points race. Starting off at number 10, Justin Schultz is up here with 6 points in 8 games played for the Washington Capitals. Not bad. The Washington Capitals have been off to a hot start, one of the only NHL teams to have not been defeated in regulation, and they're doing it, continuing on that run without a lot of their top guys who were taken out because of the COVID protocols. Justin Schultz, great pick. Then you have Drew Doughty with the LA Kings, a team that is not winning all too much, but who've gotten 6 points in 8 games out of Drew Doughty. His reputation is definitely down the drain compared to where he was before in terms of an actual legit NHL defenseman. He won the Norris a few years ago without being one of the top scorers, which is very noteworthy, but he is still here in this conversation regardless. Darnell Nurse is over here. He has 7 points in 9 games played, 4.78 points per game. Hey, the Oilers have been in a position where they've been kind of struggling to win a few games here and there. If you take a look at where they're at right now. Yeah, they're on a 2-game losing streak. They just fell to the Maple Leafs again. They're now outside of the top 4 in the North Division, meaning that they wouldn't make the playoffs if the playoffs started today. But hey, Darnell Nurse is over here, number 1 defenseman for the Edmonton Oilers in terms of point scoring. Next up, it's Morgan Rielly, Toronto Maple Leafs defenseman over here, doing his thing and being very productive. We've known that Morgan Rielly over the years has had a very nice offensive flair to his game. He's not really the kind of guy to jump up at a play and make you think, wow, that guy is so good. He just kind of does the right thing over and over and over again. He gets the puck to the right guys, and he always ends up getting assists. That's kind of how Morgan Rielly produces his points. Next up, John Klingberg, a guy on the Dallas Stars who is one of their number 1 defensemen. And I say one of their because they have Miro Heiskanen too, who's also a number 1 caliber defenseman. It's just, you know, we have 2 number 1 guys. Doesn't really mathematically make sense, but it makes sense thematically on a team because that's just kind of how they perform. But Klingberg, great reputation around the league. He was a top producer over the past few years in defenseman scoring as well. Shay Theodore is over here with 7 points in 7 games played. We have fully entered the point-per-game territory now, starting off with John Klingberg. But Theodore, very good Golden Knights defenseman. He was an absolute dagger against the Vancouver Canucks in the most recent postseason. We all kind of know how good he can be. Jeff Petrie is over here with the Montreal Canadiens with 8 points in 7 games played. This guy is an absolute animal. Like, you think best defenseman on the Habs, you think Shea Weber, just in terms of reputation. But Jeff Petrie, man, this guy knows how to take over shifts, man. We saw it in the postseason last year, the Cole Caulfield snipe. He's got a shot that he's not afraid to use. But he's a man of the people, you know? He goes out there, he tries to get shots with the intention of having guys in front tip it. It's why he's out here with 2 goals and 6 assists in 7 games played. He's doing very well, and it's kind of funny because he's the kind of player who gets better with age. Like, he's seriously out-producing everything he has ever done before, and I love it. And now we enter the top 3 of this conversation because third overall, with 9 assists, 0 goals, and 8 games played, it's Cale Makar. Because, of course it is. This guy's an absolute dynamo. I will still give myself full credit because back in 2018, I made a video talking about how Cale Makar was going to be the next best thing, and this is kind of why. No matter what happens with him and Quinn Hughes, who we're not going to talk about yet, but we're going to talk about him later, no matter what happens between him and Hughes, I will always love Cale Makar as an NHL player because this guy is so talented, so dynamic, just knows how to take over a game. You know, he's got that ability to just create offense out of nothing, just explode with offensive pressure and potential. Plus, he's pretty good defensively too. So there's definitely going to be a lot of consideration for Cale Makar just a year after he wins the Calder to win the Norris too, depending on how he's able to continue with that 1.13 points per game status that he's at. But second overall on this list, tied with Cale Makar in defenseman points, it's John Carlson, 9 points, 8 games played. What do I have to say about John Carlson? The guy has gotten robbed a few years of winning that Norris Trophy. Last year, you could debate that he should have won it because he was the #1 point scorer amongst all defensemen. Roman Josi was actually second. See, that's what I'm talking about here. The second overall guy has won the previous 2 years, which is really interesting. But John Carlson last year was the only point-per-game defenseman in the entire league, pretty much, who actually played a full season. Like, he was out here doing his thing and getting so many points, but Roman Josi just edged him out in the voting. But like Washington Capitals fans have come to expect, Carlson has been out there scoring a ton of points and making a ton of goals, which is why he is over here as one of the top-producing NHL defensemen, and, you know, it's about time that he probably gets a Norris or 2 to his name because he hasn't won one before. He's been very good, but he's never been there to win it. And finally, the #1 point producer for all NHL defensemen is none other than Quinn Hughes. He has the most games played out of everybody in the top 22. The 22nd guy is Tyler Myers, who also has 10 games played. But Quinn Hughes is out here with 11 points, 1 goal, 10 assists in those 10 games played. He is an assist-per-game player like Cale Makar is. He is over a point-per-game player like the top few guys on this list are. But Quinn Hughes has indeed been a guy who has been involved in so many Vancouver Canucks goals. And it's weird, you know, because if I had to say Quinn Hughes was going to win the Norris this year, I honestly would be a little bit surprised because Quinn Hughes, for example, against Montreal, in my opinion, he was not great. Sure, he got points like every other goal, but this guy coughed the puck up a lot. And I know it's only a span of 3 games, definitely could change over the course of 56 games, but out of what we've seen so far with Quinn Hughes, even though he is out here at over a point per game pace as a defenseman on the Canucks, who have never had this kind of offensive talent on the blue line ever, it's so scary because it's like, oh, this guy can become better. Like, he can be even more good. He's in a position where he's able to dipsy-doodle his way out of his own zone with ease. Just spin around guys who are attacking him, no biggie. But again, sometimes in the Montreal games, for example, the guy would just completely gift the puck to the opposing team on a silver platter. It happened like once in a while, but the fact that it happened more than once was quite noteworthy to me. So it's funny because there's still so much room for improvement with Quinn Hughes. It's just kind of the natural progression as he doesn't have Chris Tanev as a partner anymore, who is very good at deflecting away those defensive situations, right? But he's still out here as the #1 point producer. If Quinn Hughes is able to go out here, continue that point per game pace, be on top of the league in points, and he tightens up that defensive game and turning over the puck in his own end once in a while, I think he's got a chance, man. I think he does have a chance, like all these other guys here in the top 10 as well. Not to mention some of the other guys who are doing very well outside of the top 10. Ty Smith is just out there. Rasmus Andersson, I've noticed. Of course, you have Victor Hedman and Shea Weber, too. How could you forget about those guys? But there indeed are so many really good defensemen this year that this year's Norris voting will probably mostly be decided by the points. Let's be real here. But no matter what happens, we're going to be looking forward to it all, won't we? Tell me in the comments what you thought about this video topic. I hope you enjoyed this video. Schultz 99. And bye.